Welcome to another episode of Lifestyle After 5. Of course, with our moderator and co-host, Lord Shu. We back again with Mr. Rich Bukowski, aka No Shirt Rich today. We owe Rich a Lifestyle After 5 shirt. We're gonna get Rich that shirt. It's coming in the future. It's coming in the future, Rich.
Head.
In the not, as they used to say, the not so distant future.
Yeah.
Appreciate you being here with us. Today we're
Always.
talking, this is episode 5 of this series, and we're talking about tech and crime, the intersection of innovation and law. So I'm gonna set the stage for this. Let's just imagine some of you may have experienced this. Imagine a hacker from halfway across the world steals your identity, and an AI judge decides their punishment. Let's welcome to the future of crime and law. How you doing, Rich?
Woohoo, woohoo. I'm doing well. Nice. A little frosty here in New York, so I'm nice
I
and
got the
sharp.
hoodie on today. I'm in Carolina. We're not frosty, but it's a little chill. So I had to put the Lifestyle After 5 hoodie on.
Yeah. I went outside the other day actually for like, I don't know, maybe a minute or two. I was like, freeze to death. Yeah, don't come to Germany right now.
I'll take that off my list.
Yeah, it's like the worst time. Man.
So Rich, tell us as we dig into this episode. I know you got a lot to say in the way that tech plays a role in modern crime. A lot of us have been a victim of it. I personally have been. One Christmas, I logged into my account. Thank goodness I had done all my Christmas shopping. And as I'm going through my account, I look and see that I bought cigars in Italy, but I was sitting in the state of Georgia. So I was like, oh, they got me. But yeah, we had to freeze the account. A lot of uh, what they call it database hacks have been
Yeah.
going on. Yeah, but right, because right now, like I tell people, it's so bad now. I don't even bother with all the security features because nowadays they don't even get you personally. I found out I've been hacked from another company, from the bank. Well, you got an account with the bank, so they've hacked the bank and got my data from the bank. They got my data from the cell phone company. They got it from the power company, from the credit bureau. So I'm like, it's useless now almost for all these security messes. You can have the best security software at your house. Now I'm not saying just be careless and just throw your stuff out there, but it's like it's so easy for them to get now.
And you have the whole business really about monitoring the dark web, which is kind of where they get that information. Most people, or at least most scammers, get that information, right? Kind of sold, your kind of all that you are, digitally, and then but you still, there has to be some kind of personal monitoring. I mean, again, some of it will be obvious, just like you said. You noticed a few things, here or there on your bank statements. Then there's you'll start to get like weird emails and texts and stuff about about all these, whatever they want to use to try to draw you in. But just to lean back to what we were saying before, if you're, effective and you kind of understand technologies and some of the basics of it, you should be able to see it. It should be kind of, very easy to know, how people, or at least you'd be trained to say, don't open up this file, don't open up these things they're trying to phishing. If you don't know what phishing is in technology, and especially like kind of within emails, and you're going to have an issue.
What they call it, deep fakes. I get a couple of those deep fakes where you get an email that says from your bank, it'll say something, I don't know,
Yeah.
Bank of America or whatever. But most people don't realize if you click on the little, because in my email, it comes up as a little bubble and it'll say something like Bank of America. But if you hover over the bubble, it'll show the real address. And the real address would be like xyzsomething.com. And that lets me know right away, no, this is not.
It's a fake.
Not from Coinbase. This is not from Bank of America, USA, or any of those.
Well, I believe deepfakes are mostly categorized when it comes to the pictures, right? And how someone takes, your picture and puts it on something else, or, again, turns it into porn or something, So I'm not sure exactly the actual terminology of it, other than the phishing part, but deepfakes usually is more of a visual thing.
Well, I mean, I guess that goes hand in hand with catfishing. So all of you out there that's got those AI pictures on your profile, that's a deep fake. You know damn well you don't look like that.
They be skin be looking too smooth, boy.
Oh, they done lost about
We are
40
not
pounds in
falling
the
for this.
picture. They tight and buff. So
Oh
yeah, you
man,
got to watch out for those deep fake social media profile pictures.
Yeah. And I'm sure that someone's going to take this profile of myself and like remove my shirt and just have me like sit
yeah,
there, like get naked, and I don't mind as long as you give me like give me part of the money on it, right? But
right.
not for free.
We're gonna deep fake
Keyword: no
Rich.
shirt, rich.
Yeah.
See, the other thing that you guys are missing in my vision is that everyone's going to be wearing this. There's a whole nother like e-commerce part for you guys. They're going to be, oh shit, Allie, Lord, and Rich are wearing this shit. I got to be wearing this shit. I can't be going out and like in clubbing and shit
Yeah,
without this.
without this shirt, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's
I
funny?
like it.
It really is. It got to that point like last year. People was like, "Yo, where my shirt at?" I'm like, "Yo, I don't even really know you like that, bro."
Tell them to go to
Sell it.
the website. We'll get them. But yeah, as you can see, with a lot of the crime that's coming, we can't even keep up with the laws of AI right now. Some laws haven't even been created yet. It's moving so fast.
Mm-hmm.
They're still meeting, and they're still Congress is still in session on how do you regulate AI and what's proprietary about it. If AI creates or write a book or something, is it copyrighted or is it free to be published?
Right.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of yeah, that is being addressed. Obviously, it was addressed pretty heavily in Hollywood recently, right? When it came to at least the writers and were kind of pushing that AI can't be doing these things. They can't be taking credit for it. These all kind of comes out from us. But it's still like inching more toward a full AI storyline, a full AI um, um,
Well,
you know
yeah, because you got to be
group.
careful and read your contracts because if anybody ever say they want to be able to use your likeness, for AI or anything else, that is an absolute no. And we faced an issue with that where we had to say no to some things because we couldn't afford to have our images AI. I'm AI Ali, but I don't need to be somewhere on some porn party or they got me at some of those this famous rapper parties or something looking
Famous
strange or
rapper
something with
parties.
my with my AI image. So you definitely have to protect your image, and that's what a lot of the actors was striking about because they
Yeah.
didn't want to be. They make a movie one time, but the movie industry could keep replicating their image over and over in different movies without paying them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's definitely
Yeah.
coming down hard now, and a lot more, being a lot, being addressed. But yes, it hasn't been, there are no laws because we didn't have these scenarios before, right? And so, what I keep saying on some of these, ethics and some of the part, kind of across the board is that we're just going to bump our heads into it until, when we get there, and then we'll change the laws, and then, we'll kind of, move on. But no, I don't think there's like going to be an umbrella, way of managing all of these things. The one thing I do like about it is that there are AI systems being developed and continuously being developed to fight these. Right? It's almost like a
Yeah.
robot war, right? So AI is learning how because the deep fakes get better and better, but so
Mm-hmm.
does AI. So AI is out there searching for these things and then identifying them, saying this might be a deep fake or this or something like that. So there's like this kind of always this internal battle kind of going on between like if you want to say good or evil.
Mm-hmm.
But the cops are getting smarter. The cops and the feds are getting smarter as the criminals are getting smarter. Like I said, there's AI surveillance, facial recognition, even predictive policing that they have. And before the interview, I didn't realize that with gun sounds, when you shoot a gun, each gun has a unique sound that can be identified as different, like a fingerprint.
Yeah, so there is a lot of that sound based technology. which I find funny because a lot of people are, nervous about it, cautious about it. They're like, I don't want this to happen. I don't want that to happen. And, but I'm like, why are you so nervous about it? They're only going to put it on top of the cameras that are already watching you. You don't feel bad about the cameras, you're worried about like the sound part of it. And so, and they'll usually go, yeah, you're right. What's the difference? Kind of if you're watching me, what's the difference if you're kind of, listening? And again, they're not listening to your details and stuff. They're listening at much kind of wider, layering. It's also, a speed thing, right? So if there's a gunshot someplace and then they have to, the police have to wait for a 911 call and then dispatch someone, right? And then kind of get there. With these with these, kind of like sound cameras, but with these, sound microphones, if they hear a gunshot or kind of something like that, it immediately goes to, a first responder, right?
Right.
So it makes them get there quicker. Other things that they listen for are like, like riots, right? That's another thing that those sound
Yeah.
cameras, kind of watch out for, and so almost like an industry 4, right? It kind of like bypasses a lot of stuff, but it gets it right to the, get you right to the point. And then, again, the quality of life and stuff like that, kind of should be better, with these kind of, newer functionalities. And I
Well,
have some,
what does that cross the line at? Like in Atlanta, like we was discussing, Atlanta has so-called smart city where they got cameras and lights that can hear you and they can monitor you and they can read tags and it's got facial recognition. And so they were bragging on the news in Atlanta that a guy was walking his dog and he beat the dog, which we don't condone that. And the camera caught him and he was able to be arrested. He thought nobody was around and he was able to be arrested for beating his dog or whatever. And I don't condone animal abuse, but what happens now when you can't do anything out in public? You go to a bar and they watch you sitting on the patio and they're watching you have a few beers, and now you step out of the restaurant and say, "Oh, I'm gonna go home," and I don't condone drinking and driving, but you driving home now the cops got you.
right.
It's like almost where they over your shoulder. You can't do anything. They got you. Anything, any little argument you get into, they're there.
Well, I mean, as I understand the law, and as I understand, again, law enforcement, and I kind of address this and kind of like a wide range. This is like, well,
Mm.
if you're not really doing anything illegal, they're not going to be bothering you, right? So
Somebody,
if you like go have a bunch of drinks and you walk home, you know, there's they're not going to be looking for you. Like, what am I walking wrong? Like there isn't any kind of thing like like that going on. Now, if you start a fight, right, or you get into a car or any number of things like that, there it becomes, and then again, I guess you're guilty, right?
but then
Um,
we
the
discussed in
Chinese,
previous we discussed in previous episode about the ethics in AI,
right?
and that will come into play.
Now, well, and yeah, I guess it does come up. It's something that I have addressed in, because being a multi disciplinarian, right? I find, a lot of signals and trends and things like that that affect other sectors, and the law, obviously, and like, litigation comes on. So China has actually, takes a lot of these, like the video and the camera things, much deeper than we do in the United States, at least where I can see, right? So
Mhm.
Yeah.
China uses widespread facial recognition, right? So they're like, so just like in the United States, let's just say you take a red light, right, or you take a speed,
Mhm.
you're speeding in places that you're not supposed to be speeding. Again,
Mhm.
you're guilty, and you're going to get a fine in the mail, right, or wherever it's kind of registered. In China for several years now, they do things like for jaywalking, right? For again, driving, issues like making turns where you're not supposed to be making turns, or red lights or something like that. But they'll also recognize like an assault. Like they can tell like if two people are fighting, and with the and if you have two racial, facial recognition opportunities, you'll get a ticket, for that. But they also kind of take it to places like political dissidents, and that's kind of where I think we're kind of getting, at least United States and the Constitution as it stands right now. You can't get fine for, again, wanting to be for the other side or kind of something like that, whatever. But if you're burning a car after, your team wins a championship, like, is that
I can
for,
see I can see in those instances, but two, the other side of that is I know like Uber when Uber came out, the police because we make money off crime here in this country.
oh yeah,
That's a fact. The criminal industrial complex, we make a lot of money off crime and in petty fines and stuff, catching people, speed traps and everything else. And I know the police were whining because with Uber, DUIs was going down. It's harder to catch people with DUIs when they got waves and they got people are Ubering and lifting home. And so in certain places, they don't want crime to go down. They want to perpetuate crime because it's a source of income. So if AI gets too strict where everybody's afraid to move and can't go out anywhere, we're going to lose a lot of money.
well, good. Again,
Which is
I think
good, which
that's
is the way
kind
it
of,
should be.
yeah, that's kind of like, a bad cop. I'd rather stop a bad cop, right?
Yeah.
I mean, another example of the, kind of when I'll go back to some other places where you're going right now when it comes to the kind of ethics and like kind of, if you want to leave it personality of who you are, right?
Mhm.
So in London, they have these, it's called the LUEZ, the ultra low emission zones, right?
Mhm.
So they have cameras watching to see if if you left your car on while you're waiting or you're outside or kind of
Right.
something like that, right?
Wow.
So they can kind of tell from, again, the heat coming out of the pipe there's no one in the front seat, like that. And you pass your 7 minutes that is allowed, you're getting a ticket. Right. And again, I'm all for that, like, again, if I'm, and I'm sure it's something that you can fight, if necessary, like, hey, I saw a house burning and I ran in, I didn't stop my car or kind of something like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
probably for 98% of that, that they're probably, again, they're guilty, and again, I'm all for, things like that. So, the Chinese, version of it and some of the stuff that we're experiencing here in the States is, has actually been addressed in again, a lot of law and privacy issues and stuff. But there was an episode of Black Mirror. Are you familiar with Black Mirror?
I am.
All right. So there was
Yes.
an episode called Nosedive, right? It was season 3, episode 1, right? Where they kind of started addressing like the social consequences of automated, issues like automated capture or automated proof or kind of something like that.
Right.
Was it where
Right.
you
So
had to have so much social proof to be accepted, and if you
yeah,
didn't get yeah, I remember that episode.
Social points.
So if you done something, your social score would go down, and you
right.
wouldn't be able to
Mhm.
socialize or do certain things. Yeah, I remember that episode.
Yeah, it's like you get like from first like 1 star to 5 stars about, aspects of that. And then depending on, your thing, it monitored. And this actually happens in China as well, like
Yeah.
the opportunity
Wow.
for you to get a job, right? Or
Hmm.
like, again, your social status in the industry, I mean, in your community, or access to service, right? If you're sitting there and you're, you notice your neighbors calling, 911 all the time and all that, stuff, you'll just kind of get pushed out, or you're going to be last on the list, right?
But
And
who
so the
wants to live
consequence,
like that?
yeah. And again, that happens in other countries, right? So
For sure.
your overall rating, it determines your
Yeah. Yeah.
housing, your transportation, your healthcare, right?
I know they have this in a lot of Asian countries for sure. Like
Right.
social credit. Yeah.
Yeah. So like your
There's
social
something
credits,
behind the
right?
scenes here in certain instances. This is actually starting to happen here in the insurance industry, particularly because with these certain insurance companies, when they put these little gadgets in your car to monitor
Mhm.
your driving habits. And OnStar was actually being sued for this because OnStar was selling your driving data to the insurance company. So as you speeding and you like, well, I never
Right.
gotten tickets or anything. OnStar knows that you've been, heartbreaking. You've been speeding, swerving, going
Hmm.
around lanes. OnStar's tracking all of this,
Exactly.
and they're selling this to the insurance company. So they're looking at your individual driving pattern that you can hide. And
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if Google and Waze wasn't doing the same thing because
Oh yeah.
your insurance is going up. You can't figure out why. Well, I don't have any accidents, anything else. And, it's the same thing with healthcare. healthcare, and in your
Yeah.
neighborhoods that they're monitoring with drones and everything else, looking at your roof. If your roof look old or they see a tree that's near your house, well, we're not going to insure you, or we're going to go up on your prices.
And so, putting all these things together, again, if you're
Mhm.
guilty, I'm happy that they catch you, right? But so when you get these like low rating kind of systems, right, and
Mhm.
it's affecting you, it's going to multiply, right? So if you can't get insurance and you can't drive now, and now you can't do this, and like that, you're going to have a lot of like more negative interactions, and it's just going to cause like a continuous like downward spiral, and it's going to be something very difficult to kind of get out of, right? But
Mhm.
again, the I guess another point is like that loss of authentic, like the kind of the loss of yourself, right?
Mhm.
You're going to become, either people are going to try to be like obsessed with high maintenance, like wanting high rates, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to artificially kind of, put this, the scales in to a higher end, but you're going to lose some kind of human connection, right? Everyone's going to be doing things, so their
Yeah.
rating is going to be
So they
good.
ratings
But
up.
then, who am like, I rather, is the real alley going to be there, or just the alley that he's painting everybody, right? So
Yeah.
like that loss of like genuine human connection may be a negative effect of all these kind of things.
Well, y'all can help Ali out by liking and subscribing right now. You can help this channel out. You can go to
Oh,
Rich
there you go.
channel.
Adding a number to
And
my,
let's yeah, let's add it on. Y'all go ahead and like and subscribe. Share this with your friends. And definitely check out Rich's podcast, Futures with an S.
thank you. Thank you.
You dig?
So if I can kind of jump into another thing, again, as I have done something similar to this for a company about 2 years ago, just kind of coming out of COVID, and again, COVID was a multiplier for for the access of video into courts, right? Before COVID,
Mhm.
you can only, they would only, acknowledge, either from like if you were in a hospital bed, or if you were in jail or something like that, right? They would,
Right.
allow, you know, but prior to that, lawyers would have burned themselves at the stake before they would let a regular video camera inside the, or that,
Mhm.
you being kind of outside. It was so not even something you can even consider, right? But there was a force multiplier for, from COVID. And
Right.
Mhm.
what it also opened up the kind of point about, just the access of justice. What is a courtroom? Is it the building that you're in, right? Or is it, a place where, where justice and law is kind of put in? So is there, does it only happen on that corner in that building, or is it happening everywhere? So the access to justice, has kind of opened up a lot, in those areas, right? And again, I can't get to court, or I can't afford to get to court, or, again, I no longer live there, but I now live here, right? So like, the first time the U.S. Supreme Court allowed an oral argument because of COVID-19. Like you didn't even have to go to the Supreme Court anymore, right? And then like in the UK, they do again, cloud-based criminal hearing, like things from remote locations and things, again, unheard of. And something that I always enjoyed, and I think that we should do more of, and I know that just because I watch, it's having a hard time, is these
Hmm.
virtual juries, right? So
Yeah.
Wow.
the jural system has been such, like, I personally think it's a joke in New York, right? Just to get somebody to show up, right?
Right.
Less someone, who, like, again, it's like, you're considered a jerk if you got called for jury duty. How did you
Yeah.
not get out of it? How did you do this? How, and that's not the, that's kind of not the, like, definitely not the, kind of, ancient Greek version of like your duty as a citizen is to be a juror, right? And so states like Florida and Texas and California have tested these, and I think it's all, all for it. And in some forms, once you kind of get approved, or once you kind of, are doing things like that, that could be somebody's job. You could be sitting around being a juror all day, right? And getting paid for it. Right. Whatever, it kind of goes. So there's a, kind of a future, aspect of it, But one, you'll get a much bigger pool of jurors that way, right? Instead of someone who has to
Exactly.
kind of go to the case and sit there in the box, or kind of stuff like that.
But what do
You'll
you
be
think about AI jurors? Do you think we
well,
ever get to there where we get
well,
AI judges and jurors?
no, but we're kind of there in some other forms when it comes to the like the way some of the law firms are using AI in that, right? So they're
Right.
kind of using it as a test. It's almost like in the past, every time we've said these things and we've done this, the jury always responded in X, Y, or Z, right? So they're kind of like inventing their own AI juror to practice on, to kind of see, how it would, how people may respond. There are, and I've personally been part of a mock jury, mock
Hmm.
juror, where they hire people for like X amount, like whatever, $100 a day to kind of come in, and both sides come in and test what they were going to do, or kind of see, based on the response of the court, based on what we can kind of tell from all these other people that we had spoke with, right? We think we shouldn't say this, or we should really push this, or saying. So the AI kind of juror or something like that, if it's kind of coming out of how it's
But
trained by us, right? Then may not be so bad. But again, it would have to always be learning, right?
but
Always be kind of picking up.
with that though, would it be possible to feed that information to an AI judge? That where you got an AI that's taking all these information, it can process all these cases within days. When where a real judge can look at this and say, "Okay, I agree with this. This looks fine," and stamp off.
I would say we're I'm not there. We're not there yet. But in some forms, we are, just like you said, as we were talking about, like the speeding tickets and jaywalking and all the other things, right? There's no judge sitting there making that decision. Some of these things are just basically obvious, right?
Right.
The light was red, I passed. I don't need to be a
But that
freaking
has been
AI.
challenged though. Certain states have challenged red light cameras and have made them take them down because they argue that they are unconstitutional. I mean, point being, you can have my car and run the red light in my car. I get the ticket, but I wasn't driving.
Right.
Right.
It doesn't take in effect gray areas. Okay, I ran the red light because there were two police officers trying to get by. And I don't get my day in court. I'm automatically presumed guilty with a red light camera
Yeah.
or a speeding whatever AI device.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Right. So yes, and again, I think every court, in its kind of purest form, and again, the Constitution, all know that justice isn't as easy as something that's written in a book.
Yeah.
In fact, that's why we have the whole appeal system. Look how busy that is, right? Even like, we're not even like,
Hmm.
we have to question at least what that judge did in the first place, right?
Exactly.
So, so
I
there's
think
like,
AI
so
can really help clean that up
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
No, for
So
sure.
and speed that
yeah,
along.
Yeah.
so the again, the ability to kind of deal with AI on mistrials, right?
Hmm.
To develop other models, AI models to, again, identify it, watch it, and again, will it, will it get there? Will it have a soul one day? I won't say that's probably within my 5 year, 10 year, well, you know what, maybe 10 year forecast, but I don't see it in the kind of, it is being addressed in legal education and their own personal developments, right? The
Mhm.
American Bar has formed an opinion. I'm sorry, about how GAI should be used with by lawyers, right? What has actually kind of happened out of that is that it has freed up a lot of time and energy, so people now, lawyers can almost kind of focus more on the people, right? Like on the, if you want to leave it as customer engagement, seems to be a very big part that's kind of coming out of some of these technology things. Like you're getting more time with with the person than sitting around looking through books or files and shit like that on. There's a couple of groups, that are kind of doing that and kind of have, kind of strategies. There's some, also kind of taking it, in the kind of international basis, also, are being addressed, you know. but there's some also, some new things that, again, we won't know until we kind of get there, right? So, police use or expansion of use of the drone laws, right? That is being addressed right now, and how drones can be used and how they can be, done on an identification, right? One of the things that caught my eye in that, kind of, if you want to leave new technologies and law, is like, how we might be addressing people with brain implants who are working on, like, who have ALS, but now can control devices like wheelchairs and things within their home. And, there are, laws, and, that mention that you can't, stop, anyone who has a disability from getting into this building or doing things, like, again, getting a job or different things like that.
Mhm.
So now these, like, new, now that, it's called, I believe it's called neuro law, so now with brain implants, they're going to have to law will have to evolve to access, these advanced, technologies to protect the rights of these severely, disabled people. And again, never came up before, but, it's coming up
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
So, how can I, I can't give this guy, other places may not want, again, employment law, right? You have to, provide these advanced, accommodations for these people, that, the privacy, how do I know what you're thinking, not thinking, like these interfaces. So there'll most likely something come out, will be coming out of this, the other part about who even owns that technical data from between my brain and my, and these machines.
But again,
Right.
I'm extremely afraid of technology in my body. It's just like sleep apnea. They got Inspire, where you can system that they can put inside your body that controls your breathing at night and
Mhm.
adjust to keep you from snoring and everything. And I'm not a doctor, so I'm just talking. This is my opinion. So if you need Inspire, please get your Inspire implant. But one of the things that scares me is, like we saying, tech and crime. It's technology. I don't know who can hack into this thing. If I'm asleep, they want to
Mhm.
unalive me to hack into this and cut my breathing out where I can't breathe, or choke me out. Or you, like I said, if you got a
Oh, that's
brain
hot.
implant,
That's hot. I never thought of that one. That was cool.
yeah, or you got ALS, and they controlling your brain. You got a brain implant or whatever. Can they hack in there and take control? Next thing you know, you don't know why you got a gun and
Yeah.
doing what you do.
Man,
So
that is kind of scary to think
so
about.
that scares me, with
Sheesh.
as we get more technology into healthcare and implants and stuff. I'm not comfortable with it yet. Maybe in the next 15 years it'll be a common thing. I don't know, but I'm not sold on it right now.
All good points. And again, kind of a forced evolution in law, will
Yeah.
probably have to happen. Yeah. Kind of leading back to those, the these, let's say, larger, and that doesn't have to be that, law offices, and again, how they're using technology, and again, to kind of help them, as something that you mentioned before, like the efficiencies of, of management, efficiencies of office, right? So now you have, document scanning technologies that we all have, at least, and we may even have
Yeah.
on our phones and things like that, right?
Yep.
So there have been, case studies where, AI powers, contract reviews, revisions, and then in management, right? So if a new law happens or something is kind of agreed, whatever, it now, from now on, this contract will now say this, but it actually automatically goes and revises all the other contracts, right? And again, it puts a strain on, what I would call the paralegal and the, aspect of having a job, paralegal, even as a kind of a career, I doubt it will be anything within the next 5 years. So you kind of, there was an example of, there were, like, I think it was an entertainment company or something like that, where, where they were dealing with mergers and acquisitions, and they just had this stockpile of contracts that they just, haven't been able to get to.
Right.
And then,
The VA was one of them.
they, like, there was some number, like they did 15,000 contracts in, like, one kind of setting, where it would normally take months to do it with paralegals, right? So, so think about that kind of speed and efficiencies in office buildings and in courts and things like that to kind of take away those type of things, automatic contracts, this kind of sending, right? There are like law.com and a few other places, have taken like years of their legal information, it's publicly open to everyone, and had basically made a kind of a chat GTP lawyer, right? And saying, hey, I have, I'm thinking about this, changing my contract, or, doing an analysis of this contract. Take a look at it, right? And it kind of go through vast amounts of information and make either some kind of analysis or draft a whole new contract or kind of do something like that. So like AI legal tools are going to, are in effect, and I would imagine continuing to expand at,
Well, as
fascinating
we
rate.
as we involved with AI, why do you think we've never been able to take down the dark web?
Well, there's the human shadow, right? And I'm a very big, I understand, and we all do. I mean, there's, a little bit of negative, in all of us, right? And so, some people, it used to be a way of life, and, or, how to beat the system, but it again is a cultural aspect, right? And especially when it comes to paying taxes, everyone's always looking for that one way to kind of get out of it or do something like that. But like you really can't beat the system anymore, right? You can't cheat on your taxes as much or at all.
But there's
With
still people
everyone.
that's still getting away on the dark web, and you would think they catch new things, but as they catch something, criminals are innovative. Also, there's
Right.
something new that is created, and it's almost like a mastermind. A criminal mastermind is what they call them. They always are one step ahead, creating something in ways that the most of us don't think about. I guess maybe I'm gonna create a term based off your term. Is it dark self edificy?
Well, um, and again, as in the human condition, which is very again, something that we address in, in future thinking, quite often. As I, and again, I add that into when we're talking about using your imagination and using kind of different ways to look at different things, right? Uh, you know,
Hmm.
but I bring the shadow into it as well. Like, that's just like a kind of another way to kind of touch in to the genius that might be around, and another way of looking at things that could inspire, a new direction. So I'm not saying that it should be a way of life or anything like that, but if you kind of present it in a safe environment, with your group, with your people, it'll there's information in there. There's kind of really again some good ideas if used in the right way. The example I use a lot, I mean, if you want to kind of leave it in some forms, but graffiti is considered, illegal, right?
Hmm.
But also, some ways for people to, express their art. Like, a really good graffiti artist is amazing. You know, what they're kind of coming up doing with, with cans, no less, not even a brush, right? So, you know, how do we kind of get that? People started, especially a lot of marketers started kind of bringing in like graffiti walls. And I mean, there's parts of Brooklyn, that's kind of all you have in empty spaces
Yeah.
is kind of people legally kind of going out and doing amazing things like that, right? Again, you may or may not be old enough, and I don't know about your audience also, that there was this theft prevention tool called the Club,
Yep.
right? It was like a metal bar that connected to your, to your brake and to your steering wheel, which, didn't allow you to kind of, to move your car. But, if you want to leave the example, kind of, the dark web figured out that if you just bring a can of Freon that you can kind of buy in any auto shop, spray that thing for a few minutes, it cracks the molecular breakdown of the metal, and you can just, crack it with the,
Track it.
with the screwdriver, and it completely destroyed the entire, club market. But that's freaking genius, So, you know, again, I don't push this, the shadow away. Again, if it's used in the right way, it can kind of, learn. There's a great episode the Sopranos, right, where these guys, these lieutenants, used to kind of collect collection money from the, from this neighborhood, right? But then the neighborhood
Mhm.
gentrified and became all, top stores and all this, and like, big brands and stuff. And they used to try to go in and hustle them, and they're like, I can't give you money out of my register. It's like locked in 5, 10 different ways. And if I'll quit, but there's going to be another guy coming here, and he's not going to be able to do it either, right? So there's kind of like, they count every bean. They look at everything that's kind of coming in. I can't give anything up, and it's like, and then so now like organized crime has a difficult time, at least on that part of it, right? There are other ways now, like where you have basically, we all see gangs kind of going in there, and I forgot there's an actual name for it, like when a mob goes in and just kind of steals everything in one store. So now there are technologies that are being developed to kind of break that. They're breaking things down into like you can only get in and out of certain aisles in one way or things like that. So, there's going to be that push, and who knows what that technology might do in the near future. The technology that, kind of allowed this kind of, gang, thefts from stopping. Yeah. So,
But well, I was going to ask you about, the ethics and privacy concerns. Are we giving up too much privacy to stay secure? And I go back, you look at the Patriot Act, after we unfortunately got dealt with nine
yeah,
11 happened, which you had did a great episode on. Check it out on YouTube. It was actually a survivor of 9/11. He was actually at Ground Zero fighting for his life during the time period. And he tells the story in one of our previous episodes on YouTube or Spotify. But to the point that I'm making, that forever, I say we lost all U.S. rights after 9/11 because then we got hit with the Patriot Act, which basically we can now be labeled a terrorist or make terroristic threats. I say certain things to you now, and I can be labeled a terroristic threat, which the definition of a terroristic threat or being a terrorist is a vague definition. And what's considered there's nothing hard core that can distinguish between a regular person is just angry, mad, or somebody just stupid doing something stupid in what terrorist is in a terroristic act. And with that, once you're labeled a terrorist or terrorist act, you lose certain laws.
yeah. I
You
mean,
well, actually you lose all laws at that point.
Historically, we don't have to go, far, when it came to a lot of the internment camps that we did to our own Japanese American citizens,
Mm-hmm.
right? We were like, hey, you're Japanese, you now have to live here, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, kind of get into, kind of a lot of the black ethics and things like that by just being, kind of determined, who you are or what you might be doing, because of that. And so that kind of push pull, is always going to be, well, that's not, hopefully not always going to be happening, but it's also kind of, self corrects and makes us, I say ultimately kind of, great. But, being a 25-year marketer, we've addressed a similar, or at least similar kind of aspects of what you just said also came up. Is it important that this company knows what kind of milk I buy? Right? Is it important that, the easy pass knows where I go? Is it,
Mm-hmm.
am I giving up like way too much of me,
Mm-hmm.
in a kind of an e-commerce part? Now you're kind of taking it down, we're going down a different level when it comes to like, is it make it, is it different, make a difference that the law knows where I'm going? Do I give up that much part of it? So it's actually been addressed, in some other ways about what makes you you, right? And then kind of what makes, or if, is that good or bad and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and ultimately it's bad. You really don't want to be kind of giving up like yourself too much of kind of what you do, even though if it's illegal or not, again, because it kind of takes away from, again, some like personal development or any other, kind of aspects of, kind of where you're going at. A good example is like, the people like the Treasury Department used to hire, the people like, or would hire the really good people who learned how to do like check fraud, right? Or kind of any, things like that. How they scam the system, how to do that. And then they would kind of bring it in, right? So if we don't have that, we don't have some of those things, it it takes away, from the human. But I think that, we'll probably gain more than we'll lose, right?
I
You
hope
know,
so.
kind of if you take it again on a kind of grasper level, do I care if if the system knows I go to this kind of Chinese food, as long as I know I'm not going to get mugged from that point to that part, like, mm, you know, so they're difficult, right? They're difficult questions, but again, if you're open-minded and again, you know, honorable and have the good ways, we've dealt with this in the past, and we're going to be able to deal with it in the future.
That's true. So as time starts to run, I kind of want to bring it back up on a positive note because in futurism we always want to end on a positive. So you
Mhm.
mentioned that pool paralegals, that they might be going away in the future. What would be your recommendation to someone who is a paralegal right now?
Well, I would say this is like an amazing time for them to, and better enhance themselves, right? So take it up a step, for all of that, right? And so retraining, you know, but you're already 2/3 the way there, right? So take it to where you can either, get, again, get your law degree or get into, other organizations that need guidance on how to manage the transition, right? And so you're, kind of already there. So they should become the teachers at this point, right?
So you definitely should have enough efficacy to learn
Right.
AI.
Right. Again, to have all like know how to use the tools, know how to guide it. But again, come in and help another organization or your organization, to become this a kind of efficient machine, that will, that normally will do these things. So they could go into a bunch of other places, like any kind of like contractual where, sports management or kind of things like that will always be kind of, again, looking for people. And I wouldn't be surprised. Again, newer sectors and things like that will kind of pop up. Just look what we talked about the neural law, right? No one's running that. No one, there's no one taking a lead. There's probably thousands of people who can manage that part of it, and and kind of take it to the next level.
That's a plug right there. If
Yeah,
you
I was
all
about to
my
say.
entrepreneurs out there, that's a plug for you right there.
Yeah.
Then sometimes to be a leader, you find a parade and you stand in front of it. Mhm.
Yep. Just start dancing. Who cares?
I can also see as we've talked about AI in law enforcement and in law, I can see if used right where AI could actually help out a lot of people that's in trouble right now because most people go to jail and spend the rest of their life because of lack of legal representation because it's so expensive. So if I had an AI attorney, because the public defenders, he or she is overworked and they don't have time for your case. So 9 times 10 you go in jail if you got a public offender because they're going to tell you to take a plea and they ain't got time to really look into your case, evaluate it. But if I had this AI attorney that, I could pay for a monthly subscription of maybe 50 or $100 a month, or if I need him a
Free.
one-time fee or for free. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, or even for free, depending on the income, where, hey, I got Mr. Law AI right here that has looked over all the criminal cases, dealt with cases like mine before research, and can spit out and tell me how to plea and make the case to the judge for
Mhm.
me. I think that would free a lot of people and ensure a little more fairness in the justice system. So I could definitely see that as being a positive.
One part is being like environmental law, again, on a personal levels. Like a lot of these homeowners associations and stuff are
Mhm,
trying to stop people from putting up solar panels, right? And so that's a really tricky one, state by state, county by county, but
mhm.
so that's a really great place to start, using AI, law, because that can almost be pretty kind of straight, or even learning how to change it, right? I think California is also doing, doing some actually efforts to regulate AI and protecting your digital rights and things like that. So, again, they kind of work both ways. Um, Another way that let's just say technology, kind of, or leaving as kind of changing, let's say for the better, or kind of like, or kind of clean, like, or maybe correcting a bad law law system is the kind of mandatory DNA testing for every birth certificate. Right. So right now, it kind of goes on, and there's like, and again, Texas and in New York, that you can't get a birth certificate unless the father can be confirmed by DNA.
I
And
like
then
that.
like and statistically, it's as if I'm as I again use this
Shout
as a
out to
signal
New
of
York
future.
State for that.
So approximately 1/3 of all the births are not from the father. And the laws in the case
That's
in the
crazy.
courts only want to do this is to avoid a stupid case in the near future, right? The
Yeah.
courts are full of cases of paternity suits and things like that, right? So let's just kind of get it out of the way before we even kind of go down that road, right? And so they're also kind of swinging. I go maybe not that difficult, not really much with um, it's really not technical, but again, futurism isn't about tech. It's all about culture and about humans, and tech is a part of it, right? So there's a lot of changes going on in the no fault divorce laws, right? And so because before, and for good reason, right? There was this no fault that I'm going to divorce this man because I want to get out of it because he beats me, this, right? Or for any number of of reasons, and some of it has to do with just he can't leave because I have a child of his, and whatever. But in some cultural change, there are more women now going to college, right, than men. And there's this huge I'm not even going to get into some of the cultural divides that have happened now versus kind of where they were before. So like so there's this kind of ultimate change kind of happening for all these kind of different reasons, right? And then so these laws have to be kind of readdressed and things on there. So I would have to say that's kind of like, again, notable cases and things like that about the birth certificates, and again DNA, and
That's
again a lot of
those are positive. So I always want to ask as we get ready to wrap up to everyone that's listening, what do you think is technology the key to society? Is it making us safer, or is something we should fear? Which I don't think we should fear it, but I think it's very positive as long as we stay ahead of it and
Yeah.
create the proper controls of it. There, it can be very positive. I know a lot of times people talk about and expose the negative of it, but there are some positives to technology, and it's coming whether we want to accept it or not. It's best you embrace it and you learn it. It's just you're not going to stop the earth from spinning.
yeah.
Yep.
No, just a recap. Now you can get a court. You can now access a court that you couldn't access before. Right? I think that's a pretty positive part of it, right?
Exactly.
Again, the efficiencies of again document management is this one again going on through here, and then the ability to recognize warning signs from things that are kind of heading directions that need to be slowed down or readdressed. And so I again, I think there's a lot more positive that is in what we're dealing with right now on genetic testing and family law and privacy concerns and technical integrations, than negatives.
Well, this is like always, Rich, an inspiring episode. I learned a lot from it. I'm motivated now. You got me thinking about how can I start a business now and get ahead of some of these laws that haven't been. There are no regulatory agencies or anything on some of this stuff, so maybe we need to create one.
Yep.
So there's a lot of innovation and a lot of jobs and stuff that's going to be created. I know people talk about how AI is going to take jobs, but like I said, it's the wild, wild west right now. We just got to jump in there and jump ahead of it.
And,
And so,
or at least
Yep.
walk hand in hand, partner with it, one or the other, right?
Yeah.
You can jump
yeah, let's
ahead,
That's
partner with
or
it. Better term.
right.
I agree with
And
that.
yeah. So do you guys have any like again? I am an imagination master. So do you personally have any ideas about where you might think something like in 5 years? Like again, some of the like the Black Mirror stuff, or
Oh, I think they're already trying to get chips and stuff where you won't carry a phone. Your phone will be in your body. It'll be like an implant here in the future. I'll just think
Yeah.
about you, and we'll
excellent,
probably talk telepathically.
excellent.
And
Yeah, I think man will be using technology to honestly become more conscious. like you said, if we partner with technology, I don't think we'll have all the problems that people think. And like I said earlier in the captions, uh, man should look at technology as a tool and start thinking like a villain. The reason that crime exists is because people are afraid to address parts of themselves. So think like the villain in the future. You know, how can you get ahead of the villain? How can you get ahead of the bad guy, or as y'all perceive the bad guy? So just wanted to put that out there and drop a comment. Let me know what y'all think. What Ali said. What you think is technology the key to safer societies, or are we creating tools we can't control? And we're gonna talk about in our next episode the future of personal devices, which is what Ali was alluding to. Our agents replacing PCs and smartphones. So it's just a matter of time. I think we'll be connecting with a lot of technology, but I just think as long as we keep it from making all the decisions, then I think humanity will be all right. Just don't get lazy, people. Just because we have these tools doesn't mean get lazy.
And if you want to stay ahead of the game and keep learning, check out this series. You can always hit us up at www.after5.com, and that's the number 5 IVE. Of course, we are on Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify at Lifestyle After 5.
Bye, y'all. This was a great conversation, everybody. See y'all next episode.
And if you're watching us visually,
Thank you all.
click on the QR code above Rich, and you can join our Discord and continue the
Yes.
conversation. If not, like, subscribe, drop us a comment wherever you're watching this platform. We will respond, and we'll continue this conversation. Y'all stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the future.
Peace.
Be
Love.
well.